Hi, everybody. I'm Steve
Oh,
Haig with Men at Second. And today we're going to give you a brief recap of our February revival. So for those of you who may not be familiar, revival is a monthly gathering of Men at Second to build our faith and deepen our connections with each other. And each month we have a different speaker, another man at second, who comes and shares his faith journey. In this month, we had Kevin Lewis. Kevin did an outstanding job. Kevin, thank you very much. Great having you.
yeah, it was my pleasure. Good to see some old faces and make a new couple of friends too.
Yeah, we had a good turnout. We had, I think, 40 folks show up, which is pretty good for anything Zoom going on at second. So Kevin, and for those of you who may not know Kevin, Kevin is married to Lindsay. They have 3 children. He's a Dayton, Ohio transplant, and his dad followed him shortly thereafter, Bill Lewis. He's been attending second for 11 years. He's been a deacon, he's been an elder, served on the business affairs committee and now a planning committee. Teaches Sunday school, is on the Lakeville committee. So doing lots of things here at Second Pres. Kevin, thanks for your service.
Yeah, that's been fun too. Each one of those is its own little separate journey.
Exactly. So speaking of journeys, could you give us just a recap possibly of your journey, a little bit about what you shared a couple Sundays ago?
Yeah, I think it was, in some ways delivered chronologically, but I think that there were certainly milestone moments in my faith journey, whether it was just growing up in the church and thinking that was normal and what everybody did as a bit of an uncounted blessing, maybe. Hearing an impactful sermon as a teenager, and then, college and post-college really focusing a lot on my career. And as men, I think sometimes we have the tendency to do that a little too much and have it seep into our life in maybe an unhealthy way. And then getting out of that through an invitation to the great banquet. And then hopefully, work in progress, passing a lot of the good things that have happened to me onto my 3 daughters.
Oh, very good. Yeah, sounds like quite a journey. And thanks for that whirlwind tour. So you've been a Christian pretty much all your life. I think you said in your talk that you really didn't have a burning bush moment, but you were moved to tears by a sermon by a gentleman named Roger, and you were a teenager at that point in time. And maybe could you tell us just a little bit more about what was it that moved you, or maybe what you were kind of going through as a teenager at that point in time that maybe made you so ready to hear a sermon like that?
Yeah, so it's Roger Nishioka. So for those deep in the Presbyterian group, he's I guess somewhat famous in that circle. He was the keynote speaker at Montreat, North Carolina. I was a sophomore. I had no idea who he was, other than when he gave the first initial kind of invocation. I was pretty blown away. It was good, and then the next day was the sermon. And I don't know if you know too many sophomores in high school, but having some tears in your eyes amongst 800 of your most favorite friends that you've just met from all different churches around is not exactly a common experience. And as I said in the talk, though, I couldn't tell you what it was about. I couldn't tell you what he said, but I do remember how it made me feel. And that was the powerful moment. And I think it's sort of like the field was ready. He planted the seed. I recognized it, and it opened my eyes to kind of what I considered. I experienced that God was around, for the first time, really.
Wow, no kidding. Do you remember what you did right after that? Did you go and tell all your friends that you were crying in the service, or did you hide it, or what happened right after? Do you remember?
So I went up. I was one of the first people. I walked right up to him afterward and kind of tried to choke out a "Hey, thanks," and that meant a lot to me, but I didn't really have the words coming. And then I turned around and went back to my youth group. I saw a couple other people, crying too. So. It wasn't just me. It was kind of a movement that was happening there.
Wow. Any idea what Roger's doing today? Is he still around?
I think he's in Kansas, and I think he's the head of a church now. He was a professor at the time that he gave that talk.
Wow. It might be a thrill for him to hear from you. Did you keep in touch with him?
No, not at all. I should have. My
No,
sister,
no.
I think he was at Columbia when my sister was trying to figure out which seminary she wanted to go to. I think she knew he was at Columbia at that time. So there could have been, just one of those things. She ended up not going there, but it could have been one of those circumstances where we got in touch. I should reach out. I should.
Well, now after you told that story on revival, you had a really powerful question. I thought that what do you need to do, or how can you be that person, that Roger, for somebody else? And I was just kind of curious, if you had some additional thoughts on that, like how can people be Roger to somebody else?
Yeah, you can. It doesn't take a sermon to do it. I mean, if someone at work is being treated unfairly, you can take them aside and just be with them. It can happen as a neighbor who's going through a rough time, to just be with them. And I think the point and what he was expressing and what I was able to understand, you're doing it right when the other person feels felt. And so whether that's someone having a hard time that you do work with, and it's not, giving them a sermon at work, it's just being with them and understanding that they're going through something, and you're there for them. And this happens in families a lot, but it doesn't have to necessarily be your family. So I think that if we all were to start focusing on that and doing that more, perhaps the world would be a kinder place. But it's those moments in my mind and in my life, that's what I remember. It's how that person was there for me, or stood up for me, or was with me through that. That's the kind of feeling that he invoked.
So are you saying that the majority of being a Christian is just showing up?
Yeah, you don't have to do all the work, it turns out. If we did, we'd be in more trouble than we are now. Yeah.
How about that? There's this thing called the Holy Spirit and the cross. You can kind of just set things down, right? You don't have to carry it all. That's great.
Yeah.
Something else that you talked about was just how your job, was a central point of your life. Nothing wrong with that, but that maybe you at one point maybe became your job, right? It became you. It became, kind of who you are. And I think a lot of men deal with that, right? Particularly when you're younger and just getting your career up and running, maybe. And I'm curious, what thoughts do you have for men to guard against that? And maybe what are the warning signs?
Yeah, it wasn't some moment that it all of a sudden became me. It was in little tiny pieces. So it was a bit insidious in the way that I feel like it snuck up on me. And I think also for other men. And it can cause a lot of frustration if you're not achieving the way you want to, or you don't have the lifestyle you thought you were going to have, and the job is not what you wanted it, or holding you back. What I needed to do, and had failed to do up until that point, is really disassociate the fact that your worth as a man, sometimes you very much feel like I need to be the provider and have a good job and have status in the community, and people to look at me and say, wow, I couldn't do that, or that's really hard. You're great at this. And how do you do it? None of that matters to people who matter to you, or should matter to you, right? I mean, my closest friends, they don't care what my work is. They want me to be happy, right? And so then my thinking was, they cared a lot about like how great my job title was, or the achievement that I was having. And I thought that they did not. And so it took, Shadrach inviting me to banquet for me to sit down and go, oh, I'm the only one that actually really cares about this in this way. It's actually not anybody else. It's really only me. So, at whatever it was, 28, 29 years old, my whole career up into that point had been a blending of my self projection of what I thought the world was going to be a successful Kevin Lewis. And it just didn't need to be that. And I was the only one that thought that. That was the shocking realization. Like, no one else thought that but me. Wow.
And then you went to the banquet, thanks to Shadrach, and had a great experience there, right? And then was there a moment at the banquet, without giving away the wonderful things that happened at the banquet, was there a moment there where you thought that it came to you, like, I'm really see myself in my job in the wrong way?
So I was shocked by the first speaker. I was just blown away, shocked. I'm like, I can't believe people talk this candidly about their lives. And then I think it was, that we call it the fifth day when you go home.
Third day.
Coming back home, and
fourth day. One of us.
Fourth day. We'll get it right. One of these times we'll get it right. I've only been to banquet twice. So it's on the fourth day when I came home, and I kind of was testing some things out with whether it was friends or, my wife Lindsay or whatever. And I kind of thought, it was just only me all the time thinking that. Just validated. It's kind of a miss. Time to change.
Wow. No kidding. And so Kevin, today, what is Christ doing in your life today? How would you characterize that?
Yeah, so it's interesting with church being remote. Never thought that would occur. Our session meetings are remote. We have
Right.
Lake Fellow interviews this weekend that'll be in person, but outside and distant, which I'm like super excited for and very thrilled about. But I do feel like this church, whether it's through something like the Zoom call we had with the Revival Men, we had done our best to digitally sustain people. And I do feel sustained through this. It didn't feel like the net was taken out. You know, I do feel like the support network was there. Thankfully, the relationships I built at this church before it all happened are there. And I mean, it's crazy to say, but I did meet a few new people on that call when even it was just me talking about my faith journey of men at the church.
Yeah,
That
right.
I didn't know who followed up with me afterward to say thanks.
Oh, no kidding.
So I do feel very sustained through the whole process. And, you know, whenever we do open up and it's safe, you know, I hope that we open up with a bang and it's dramatic and I go out of sustain mode and let's get back to growing.
So where two or more are gathered in my name, even over Zoom, I am there.
That's right. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Kevin, thank you so much for agreeing to be the speaker. It's a lot of work. It takes a lot of courage to speak about your life. I think particularly virtually. So I really appreciate you doing this. And I know it sounds like a lot of men already reached out to you, but we really appreciate you stepping up and doing this for all of us. It was a great story. And folks, if you'd like to attend the next revival, they are every month, the third Sunday at 9:30. And they last about an hour and 15 minutes. So the next one is on March 21st, and our featured speaker is Mark Melvin. So come and be revived. Thank you.